This is Growing Up Aspen with Andy Collin, Chris Pomeroy. We're starting season 2. Where are they now? Where we catch up with some of our old schoolmates. Today we're here with Missy Brinkman Greis. So, since you grew up probably around Hunter Thompson as a kid, do you have any kid stories? Because I can sort of barely remember some stuff because I was going to the community schools right down the door from him there.
Yeah.
Do you have any wacky Hunter Thompson story?
I have two, but they're from when I was an adult.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you.
That's fine.
Okay. So, the first one was when Grace, my daughter, was like 4 years old, and Hunter's grandson, Will, was also 4 years old. And so Juan and Jennifer would come up and stay at our farm. And Deborah, Christine's mom, would often like host people at her cabin, right? So we were at Deborah's cabin for some barbecue or something. I don't know if it was Labor Day or 4th of July or whatever. It was definitely a holiday. And Grace and Will were in the bathroom in the cabin, and I was standing outside the bathroom. And they decided they were going to close the door, right, to wash their hands.
Yeah.
And Hunter comes up, and I'm standing there, and he's like, "Who the fuck is in the bathroom?" And I was like, "The little guys." And he's like, "Who are the little guys?" You know, and I was like, "Your grandson and my daughter." And he starts banging on the door, and he's like, "You little vermin, you get out of there right now." And then the other story was just having dinner with my mom, and Bob brought us, and Ed and Patricia. So Ed Bradley and Patricia, his wife, before Ed passed away. And there was a reporter from London, and I think Ralph Steadman, who's the artist from all of Hunter's books. And we were at their house out on the deck at this long picnic table. And you know how you have to get into picnic table seating? Like you can't push your chair back. You have to climb it. So Hunter's on my right, and Ed's at the head of the table, and whoever the reporter was across the table, they started to get into it a little bit about politics. And all of a sudden, Hunter just stands up with his plate of food, throws it over his shoulder, like off the deck.
Wow.
Says, "You're full of shit, and I'm fucking out of here." And he leaves, and you could just hear, because the driveway was gravel. Yeah. You could just hear the shark tear out of the gravel driveway. And that was the end of that.
Interesting.
Yeah. But that was, I was in my 20s then, 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that.
He always was about the surprise. You never quite knew what was going to happen with him,
Yeah.
So since we're heading into Halloween, do you have any scary stories? Something other than Ted Bundy?
Oh my God, Ted Bundy, we were in 4th grade and we had to get locked in the gym at the Red Brick.
Yeah. We had to walk together. I think for like 2 weeks we had to walk together in groups, I thought.
Yeah, maybe.
I remember.
You know what I do remember is someone someone made a bunch of Xerox copies of his like wanted sign. And I didn't know at the time because I was too young to understand, but someone took one of those and autographed it and said, "Dee Dee, thank you so much for the hospitality." And it was on our fridge. And it was just somebody else, right? Had just, And it took me years to figure out like how funny it was.
That's the old Aspen for sure.
Scary? Like what kind of scary?
He's thinking ghost stories.
Or
we were talking about ghosts earlier.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'll tell my scary story that it's not Aspen, but it was the scary story before we moved to Aspen. We're in LA, we're in Venice Beach, near Santa Monica, Venice, in that area. And I woke up one morning, literally with a bunk bed, and my brother Mark was down below and I'm up above. And I look over, and staring at me is this little girl. She looks just like those little girls in The Shining, where the elevator opens up and they got those nice, pristine little red dresses and everything. That's exactly what she looked like. And I thought, oh, maybe my brain is making this up. So I yelled to my brother, "Hey, Mark, get up!" And he gets up, and he's like staring at her dress and the kneecaps of this dog. The dog was one of those Great Danes, those real tall dogs. And he's level with my bed. I'm looking right at the dog. And my brother gets up and he's like, "Oh my God." So we call my dad. My dad comes in. He's like, "Oh geez." He goes back, gets a bathrobe, and comes running in. And it's like, "So what's your name?" And she's like, "I live here." And he's like, "No, we've lived here for quite a while now. Were you at Sunday, mass or something?" And she's like, "No, I live here." And he's like, "Well, no, we live here now. So you need to go, and kind of walked her out the door and shut the door, and then came back and was like, "Oh my God, what was that?" And then he felt bad. So he went to go look for her because he thought maybe she's is lost and she needs some help or whatever. And she was gone, literally gone. But we all saw her.
Oh my God. So
that was my scary story, where I just don't know what to think about that one, because she was real.
I really think that there are people that can come across whatever they're coming across.
Yeah.
Did you go back and find out who that person was?
We never did, but I bet you if we look back in the history books, we might find something about some family back in the 1800s or something.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't really have any stories like that.
No, nothing scary, nothing.
I got a good one. I told Andy this earlier, but when my son was about 3, he was 2 or 3, we went to go see a fort here in Civil War fort in Georgia, and we were walking through, and he was, he's jumping up on the cannons and, just being a kid and doing what kids do in this giant fort. And we were walking through this main area, and he said, "Daddy, why are those men crying?" And I was like, What are you talking about? There was nobody around, I really didn't think much about it. And he asked again, and I was, I don't know, buddy. Let's just keep going and look at other stuff, And we went to the gift shop afterwards, and I asked him at the gift shop, "Hey, what was that area back in the day?" Because you could always tell where the bedrooms were and the powder kegs and everything else. And they said, "Oh, that was where they kept the Union prisoners, and most of which died in there." I told the local ghost story people that in Savannah, and they were like,
Yeah.
You freak out the ghost people. You gotta wonder, It's pretty cool.
That's trippy.
Yeah, that's my Halloween story. Woo!
Yeah, I remember it always seemed like the mall crawl was the first real snowfall in Aspen. It seemed like I was kind of the regular thing.
Halloween.
Yep, get in your costumes, get ready to get out there, and all of a sudden it's freezing snow.
Yep. And that's when we all had to start strategizing to, I remember Jen Bloomquist, because she was the littlest, right?
Yeah.
She's the S2E05, so she was able to capture the ideas of her older siblings, and we would go start looking for big washing machine and dishwasher boxes. And we would be dice, right?
Oh yeah.
So you could wear warm clothes underneath.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're not going to be a princess in a, with your puffy coat over.
No fairies.
No, it had to be very utilitarian, you know? Like, how many costumes are in a box?
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a toaster. You could be a.
And I do remember. She also had they were so creative, but she had a thing where they would cut like a circle of cardboard and your head would fit through it. But then her mom would sew like a satin kind of sleeve over it, so it would be a can of, Orange Crush or Coke or right. Yeah.
I was going to say that the most creative stuff I think I saw back then with just a box was always John Kelleher. And he always, they'd always make his wheelchair into like a Volkswagen Bug or something, or I can't even remember what.
Yeah. That's right.
The toilet guy. You'd turn around and you'd see it had the whole flush and the handle thing, and when you turned it, it would make the whole flushing sound.
Who was that?
I can't remember who it was, but it was pretty funny because the recording was like a really old toilet.
Oh my God. That's funny.
Thanks for listening to Growing Up Aspen, a Joiner's Table podcast with our classmates. We'd like to thank the Aspen Times and the Aspen Daily News for letting us include some of their materials in our book, Growing Up Aspen, Adventures of the Unsupervised. The authors would like to thank you. If you're interested, you can check out our book at twistandturnpress.com.